Welcome, one and all, to Enlightened Conversations, where this season we're going just that little bit deeper and not skimming on the judgy surface of life. I will also be sharing conversations with my guides, and you can be guaranteed that all the topics that come through are authentic, life-changing, and enlightened, because we want you to live a more joyful, peaceful, and loving vibration. Let's go. Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 2 of season 7 of Enlightened Conversations. I'm Michelle Lightworker, and I'm pretty excited actually to bring this episode to you because it can assist us to understand mental illness a little bit better with regards to how possession and walk-ins influence people's behaviour. I know that there has been a little bit discussed and put on television and movies in relation to possession, but not a lot on walk-ins and not a lot on parallel universe walk-ins. So this is going to be a little tiny bit different from the usual possession takeover that, The Exorcist and things like that have in store for people. It's a little bit more of talking about the story about how somebody in one reality is unhappy with their lives and severely depressed and can start to create a fantasy world for themselves and disappear mentally from their current life, and how that can slide into another universe and a parallel universe, and how that affects the energetic systems of and the mind of the person that is being possessed by this walk-in. We'll call it a walk-in, not a possession. It's like an unconscious possession from the person who's actually possessing the person. So what I want to do is I want to share a little bit from my conversation with Ralph that happened not in the book, but this was after I wrote the book, actually. And I started keeping conversations in a document called Conversations with Ralph 2, thinking, okay, I'm going to be writing another book. So that was back in 2018. And so now here we are in 2025, and I have a number of these conversations that I guess, I was saving up for a book, but I haven't got there. And I just feel like at this point, my guidance that's coming through is not about hoarding information. So they are kind of sporadic topics. They don't kind of gel all together and flow all together, but they're really worth doing a little bit of a deep dive into in a short episode by myself with you guys. But what I'm also open to is, if you have a lot to say, if you're listening to this and you go, oh my God, I have so much I could share on this topic, I'm open to follow-up episodes with same topic, just part 2. My previous episode on Truth in Context, if somebody listens to that and says, oh my God, I've got so much to say on that as well, I would love to sit down and have a chat with you on an episode. So let me know, or even hear your feedback, send it through, and I could maybe share it on another episode. So without further ado, I'm just going to read what came through as I was writing, having this conversation with Ralph. Sometimes it's direct information, sometimes it's a summary, just depends on the day, depends on how much came through, how quickly, and how much I can summarize. Bits of it kind of didn't make sense to me at the time, and I had to go back in yesterday and just have more of a deep dive with Ralph and have more questions around things. So that'll become apparent at the end because I will summarize that as well. So without further ado, here we go. So this came through on the 7th of August, 2018. And so walk-ins are possession when the human comes from another universe. They are about avoidance and not at all wanting to expand or evolve or face the soul's journey for the person who's from the original, let's say the OG, original parallel universe. They are attracted to and match with their unconscious. They are not sociopathic or psychopathic. They are a depressed soul who may gravitate to a depressed soul who's medicating or avoiding their depression through drugs or money, they may gravitate directly to an addict. When the walk-in connects with the human body, their imprints dissolve. When we talk about imprints, I'm just taking a little sidestep over here, just for those listening. We're talking about traumatic imprints, unresolved business in the body, in the energetic body. So when the walk-in connects with the human body, their imprints or their unresolved trauma that in the OG's energetic body cross dissolve into the person being possessed in our universe, so that it makes it easier. Both the unconscious host and the possessor find themselves sliding in and out of each other's consciousness. This can be very disturbing to both of the human beings. There can be quite a schizophrenic mindset, and there is memories pertaining to the imprints that are in the etheric body of each soul. So when you think of PTSD, just another side note here to break this down a bit, flashbacks, that kind of thing. We're saying there's memories pertaining to the imprints. That means unresolved business. There's a memory attached to it. It's flashing in and out of someone's consciousness. It can be quite schizophrenic, and it can feel quite real. So the possessor can access memories from the host, and the host can start to be delusional with regards to the possessor's memories. This can appear very real, like PTSD episodes. They are from current life and also past lives spanning many lives, so extra confusing. The possessor can also access the past lives of the host, but usually has more control over what they see. This will become a bit more understanding, because when you think about somebody who wants to vacate their OG experience into another fantasy world, they're invested. Like I want this. Whereas the person being possessed, they're more vacant and more confused and not understanding what are all these images going on. So it makes sense from that perspective. So, so the possessor can also access the past lives of the host, but usually has more control over what they see. So therefore, they're less having flashbacks of the person they've possessed from like unresolved business and unresolved past life experience. However, it can still be confusing to them, though. They can get confused. The OG person from the universe, that they may indeed forget that they are the possessor or not be aware, and completely take on the identity and memories of the host. Can be confusing for a person dealing with the possessor, so like a family member or what have you, as they may indeed speak as the host, accessing memories from them. So to say you have a brother or a sister and they just appear really different all of a sudden, and you're like, who is this person? You know they're an addict or what have you, but then they start acting really different, like very unfamiliar. So that can be quite confusing for the family member dealing with somebody who's possessed. In this way, they are in deep avoidance of their own reality, and grave mental illness ensues. Okay, so just moving on, obviously distorted reality is a big part of mental health issues, not knowing what's real, not knowing what's not real. So this gives a bit of insight into why that could be happening, and also it can help understand why you can't get through to somebody if they've really disappeared and they have a walk-in in their consciousness, you could say, and it's very strong, the person who's walked in really wants to avoid their reality. They're convinced that this is their reality. Actually, they don't know what they're doing. They don't know their inner fantasy world. We'll understand that a bit more in a minute because I have to go back to ask this. And so therefore that can be quite confusing for friends and family to deal with this person. Okay, so we'll just move on to this next little bit. If a person has contracted with a part of themselves, let's say either side of the pendulum here, the OG possessor or the person being possessed, if a person has contracted with a part of themselves to be reclaimed at a certain time to serve as an awakening, then this is to propel the person forward in their consciousness. So therefore, what we're saying in that instance is two people from parallel universes can contract. I know. It's not one of those things that I've ever kind of really did a deep dive into, but it makes a lot of sense that, we make contracts with people who are in this reality. But this is taking a deeper step, that this is, yes, more complicated. We can contract with other people in other universes as well, parallel universes. So in that situation, this is not an avoidance. That reclamation of the soul is always part of the human in the first place. It's not a possession and it's not an avoidance. And it serves their ascension rather than keep them in holding pattern of avoidance. So in this instance, we're talking about, I have a me in this world. I have a me in another parallel universe. That part of myself is stepping into this part of me in this universe, and they're contracting to propel me forward. Maybe I'm a little bit unconscious and they're helping me move forward. So therefore, in that situation, it's not avoidance, it's a reclamation of soul, and it's always part of the human in the first place. It's not possession and it's not avoidance. It serves their ascension rather than keep them in a holding pattern of avoidance, right? So a little bit different there. The holding pattern can create more depression, and this can lead to suicidal thoughts, self-harm, and actual suicide. The holding pattern of the original situation we're talking about with a person who has no reality of being possessed, and they flipping in and out of being possessed, not being possessed, confusion. That holding pattern can create more depression, can lead to suicidal thoughts, self-harm, and actual suicide. They just don't know who they are, and it's they don't know why they're doing what they're doing. They're confused, they're empty. A lot of the time don't have a memory of what has transpired when they're potentially in and out of that possession. So now I just want to move on and talk about a little bit of the questions that I had yesterday. So I wanted to share it because I was told not to hoard any information as I entered retirement and was not really planning on releasing the book. Yes, I've written all about that. I've told you all about that already. So after reading the previous text, which is what I've just talked to you about, I spoke to Ralph and asked why the possessor would want to possess and how they do that. I was told that they may or may not know of parallel universes and that it's possible to do it. So they may or may not know at their level of operating in their life that there are parallel universes at all. They may not believe in them. They may not even know that it's possible to do what we're talking about. It might be totally nothing they've thought of. I was told that they may or may not know of parallel universes and that it's possible to do it. However, they are usually in a catatonic state in one universe, and the possession is like a fantasy that is being played out in their head. So that makes sense to me. So they may not be moving at all, like their physical body. In one universe, their OG universe, and their body is totally shut down. But their mental capacity and ability to see what's happening through their third eye and their physical eyes that they've taken over or possessed is totally open in the other universe, and it connects back to their energetic centers in the original universe. As their reality is already distorted in the original universe, they do not perceive in their imagination that their fantasy is false. So that was really helpful for me to understand why would somebody do this? I know there's a lot of talk, like with parallel universes, like in the movie Everything Everywhere All at Once, and about, you know, all ourselves being everywhere and being able to access them and stuff like that. And you know what? Maybe more of that might happen, like consciously, in trying to repair ourselves and understand ourselves and all the parts of ourselves that exist. However, you know, there's always a shadow side. You know, this what we're talking about, you know, that came through, this information that came through when it's all about unconscious, you know, somebody's in a catatonic state and they're able to flip into another universe and able to possess somebody. It's not conscious, it's actually an energetic match. So our trauma or our consciousness or our avoidance matches the energetic of somebody else and wants to play out there because we've disappeared. We've literally gone through a gateway we didn't know. So it doesn't resolve itself. It's a holding pattern. The person in the catatonic state doesn't wake up until the person who has been possessed gets conscious enough and healed enough not to be a match any longer. And so that's a really big thing. I mean, this is information that's coming through right now because I haven't written about this. So the gateway is open to energetic matches. We know this from demonic possession. They only stick when the Velcro's there. They don't stick when they just don't. There's no reason to. They just don't stick. So the more we heal our imprints, the less Velcro we have for demonic entities to stick to. Same goes for walk-in possession. And also same goes, just might as well talk about it, same goes for relationships. So, you know, those DV relationships where we keep attracting them, we don't know why. Once we start to heal our imprints, the Velcro doesn't stick. We don't feel a pull or an attraction. Or if we do, it's very short, or it's a lesson so it teaches us another level of our Velcro that we need to heal, which is great. So those relationships are shorter and we don't have a long relationship that goes worse and worse and worse. We just maybe have a short relationship where the truth is shown to us quicker. The thing about healing our imprints is there's so much power in claiming our consciousness when our imprints are healed. We are more in the present. I might be a past life believer, but I don't focus a lot on past lives. I focus more on in the present. I have this thing. Is it relating to a past life or not? And it's like kind of my next episode's going to be on that. I won't slide too much into that because I had read ahead to the next entry, and it was all about the day I healed all my imprints that I didn't realize, and I got to that point. Doesn't mean I don't have imprints that happened since then or anything like that. It's not like I'm perfect and I'm totally healed. No, it was just about past life stuff. So I will share that next episode. But this was more about pretty much a motivation, I guess, to anybody who's listening that may or may not be aware of the power in healing your imprints. It reclaims your consciousness to be able to know what's real and not real, and what's here and now and what's not here and now. And if you've got those skills, you stay sane and you stay stable and you stay in healthy relationships. You don't attract unhealthy ones and you don't leave healthy ones, because, you can push those away if you've got unhealed imprints as well. So it's the best advice I have to attract a healthy relationship is heal those imprints. And also it's the best advice I can give, to you to not be the person that slips into a catatonic state because there's so much you want to avoid and there's a fantasy world that feels better. Or B, be the person who's possessed, who is confused and doesn't understand what they're doing and why, and feels empty and wants to avoid and wants to use drugs and all that stuff. So there's no pull towards that avoidance. And we touched on money as well. I think that's because the drugs or the alcohol avoidance side of things tends to be what people focus on when we focus on, like, when we talk about addiction. But there's this other end, and we will be talking about this in another episode on the not enoughness wound, where there's the money side of things, and people hide their addiction, high functioning addiction, in the money arena. So when it comes to possession, if you've got somebody who's in a catatonic state and they want to possess, but they have those wounds around money, they may hijack a host who is really corrupted in their energetic centers with a huge focus on money. And so they can do really, power control, same thing. They can do really wicked things and on high levels of, the political arena and things like that as well. So there's that. So it's interesting because the more we learn about parallel universes, the more we can potentially use this stuff in a really dark way. Say, oh, I know this now. I know this information now. I'm going to go do that. So there's that. And I think it's important to be able to understand that there is that, but also to not stress about it and not worry about it. Just to be conscious that healing your imprints is key, and nothing can get in when it's not invited. And it requires permission always. So that's the power we have in our will, and that's the power we have in taking responsibility. So those two principles, willingness and responsibility, out of our everyday Lightworker principles, those are the two big key ones. But also the other big one is the peace that we feel when our energy is clean and not tampered with, and stable. So there's that. So I'm pretty happy with what we've shared and talked about today. I'm going to leave it there because this topic does veer off into like a spider web, really, doesn't it? It already has shown me it relates to my next episode, and it already about imprints, and it's already shown me that it relates to another episode on the unhealed wound, the not enoughness wound. And so I'm going to stop there because it's a spider web and it's an interesting topic just in itself, what we've talked about. So it doesn't have to be a long episode to be a good one, and that's what I'm learning. And so I will leave it there, and I look forward to sharing more in the coming weeks with you on all these wonderful topics. Okay, take care of yourselves. Lots of love. Stay in your zone. Heal those imprints, and blessings to you.